All right, we're back. And last time we just cleaned up our menus a little bit so that the game looks a little bit better. It doesn't look perfect yet, and we'll get it perfect by the time we're finished with this. But this time, like I said, I wanted to work on trying to pick up an axe. So first things first is we have to be able to pick up rocks in this environment. And I was thinking, like, how in the world am I going to scatter rocks throughout this environment? And so there's one way you could do it is using procedural generation, but that takes quite a bit of setup. And in order for it to work with our blueprint, I don't even know how to do that. So I just crafted my own little way. So what we could do is we can just create a new blueprint. So go to your blueprints folder and your pickups folder, assets, pickups. And we're going to create a new blueprint called scatter. And as you can see, I've already done this. So right click blueprint actor, and we're going to call it scatter underscore BP. And all we want in the scatter blueprint is to add a scene component. Now in your event graph, you can, on the begin play, I don't think you need these two right now, but on the event begin play, we need to spawn an actor from class. Spawn actor from class. The actor that we want to spawn is going to be the rocks. And spawn transform, we need to break this open. So split open. Then for location, say get random point. You could say get random point in radius, or you could say random point in bounding box. That's what we really want. Random point in bounding box. But before spawn actor, we need a for loop. So do for loop. Not a for each loop, but a for loop. And the loop body hook up to spawn actor. First index we want is going to be 0. Last index, though, is how many you want to spawn. And so if you put 69 here, it'll spawn 70. So I'm going to put 70, so it'll spawn 71. But really what you can do is take this and promote it to a variable and click the eyeball on for this variable. That way we can set this number on the fly. So we can have multiple instances of this in our level where we scatter the rocks, but we'll drop a different amount each time. So now what we've got to do is we're going to spawn the rocks in. We're going to spawn 71 rocks in. But where are we going to spawn them in? That's what this location is. So the center is, we need to grab off this scene and say get world location. And that's going to be the center. Now, how far you want it to spread out? This is the radius right here. So how far do you want it to spread out? I'll say about a good 5,000 on the X and a good 5,000 on the Y to give it a good spread. So it's going to spread 71 rocks over those 5,000 X and Y. I don't want it to spread in the Z direction because basically I want all the rocks to just fall to the ground. So in order to make sure that's going to happen is go back to your rocks, your BP rocks, and make sure on the mesh that simulate physics is on. But if you don't want simulate physics to always be on, you can drop simulate physics on right here. So what we'll do is we're going to, right after this, we're going to pull off this blue one and say set simulate physics for the mesh. And we'll turn simulate on. That way the rocks will drop down. Now, one more thing to do is make sure the rocks, your static mesh for the rocks, you can open it up. Make sure for one nanite is on because we're going to be using a lot of instances of this. So turn nanite on and apply changes. And then also press apply down here to apply the collision. Now you see little green things around there. It means it has collision. So perfect. Now that you've got that scatter blueprint, it's going to scatter from wherever you drop that 5,000 in each direction, X and Y. So let's test that out. Let's drop one in the level right here. So I'm going to drop it right around here. Boom. And now let's press play so we can see what happens. Save, and then press play. And you're gonna see all those rocks raining from the sky. But don't worry, because we're not gonna start the level instantly. Like, we'll give the rocks a little bit of time to settle before we even let the player see that those rocks dropped from the sky. So we're gonna start the level with like a cutscene or a loading scene or something like that. So don't worry. Now we've got 71 rocks randomly spread in this location. And what we could do, the cool part about what we've done is that, look, if I click this scatter here, it's going to highlight the one that I just dropped in here, so which is this one. And right here on the right hand side, I can click how many rocks I want it to spawn. So if I wanted to only do like 40, I can just change this number to 40. So that's the first thing we need to do in order to be able to pick up an axe. We need to have rocks that we can pick up, because rocks build our stone knife, but rocks are also going to be able to build our axe. But we need like sticks or something like that, or wood, but there's no sticks in the desert. So I'm thinking like maybe like scrap wood from broken down carriages and stuff like that. Maybe you can pick up that stuff and you can make an axe out of that and some stones. So since that's the case, what I did is I downloaded a scrap wood. So in my pickups folder, I made a new folder called scrap wood. And I downloaded this little piece of scrap wood, which you can make it or you can download it. But what we need to do is we need to make a blueprint out of it, but not any old blueprint. We need to go back to our pickups folder. And this master pickup item, we're going to right click and we're going to create another child blueprint of this one, because this is a master pickup. And this one is going to be called scrap wood for me. Scrap wood underscore BP. And remember, you have to spell it the way that you want it spelled. So I'm going to take this mesh and switch it out with the scrap wood that I just brought in, which is going to be right here. Switch it out. Okay, and it's very, very, very small. So you know what's going to happen when I make this bigger. The whole circle is going to get bigger. So we're just going to make the wood bigger by like maybe 20, 30, 20 maybe, 22. That's a good number. The widget is probably going to have to get smaller, but the sphere, let's make that smaller. Oops, not the scale either. Make the sphere radius smaller. And then move the sphere where you need it to be. I can even make it smaller than that. There we go. And then the widget, let's put it on world right now so we can see how big it is. It's way up there right now. Bring it down. Bring it down. Bring it down. And then visible. Let's change it to visible right now. Let's make it visible. See, it's so big. That's why I wanted to make it visible real quick. Let's make it a little bit smaller by just taking that scale down. Bop, bop, bop. And we're going to call this scrap wood. So for the name over here, scrap wood. Scrap wood. Compile and save. All right, now for that widget, let's go ahead and make it back invisible. So visibility, invisible, and set it back to screen. Pop, compile, save. All right, here we need an interact. So right click and do interact. And we're going to call the event interact. And this is where we're going to do something. We need to add it to the player, and we need to destroy the actor. So let's drag off and do destroy actor. But before that, we're going to do cast a third person. And then get third person character. Or get player character, sorry. And then from here, we need to go into the third person and create a variable so we can finish this code. So let's go create a variable called scrap wood. Go to your third person character. And on the variables, we're going to create an integer. called scrap wood, just like we did with rocks. If you can remember, I think we have one that's called rocks. Yeah, rocks right here. It's just an integer. So this one's going to be called scrap wood. Okay. And all you've got to do is what you could do is, let's see. You can make a function here to add to the rocks, to the scrap wood, which just like we did with money. So let's make a function here, custom event, and we're going to call it add scrap wood. And all you got to do is get scrap wood. For the add scrap wood, we're going to put in, just like we did with the money, an input. So right here on the right hand side, put an input. It'll be an integer, and it'll be called wood amount. So we're going to take the scrap wood plus the wood amount. So plus, and we're going to set that as the scrap wood. Comment that as scrap wood, add scrap wood. All right, bet. Compile and save. Now what we need to do is finish up that scrap wood code that we were writing. So let's go here from the third person character, drag off as third person character and say add scrap wood. And just plug that function in. And wood amount, right now, these wood, or each piece of wood is going to be worth 1. So we can type 1 here. Or if you want it to be variable, you could just change this into a variable called wood amount and put the eyeball on it. And that way each piece of scrap wood will be different, or you can set it to be different. Now let's test that out, but the only way we'll be able to see that is if we go to our HUDs. Let's just put it on the crafting HUD for now. So right here on the crafting HUD, we have stone knives looking like that. So let's copy this text block right here, copy and paste. And this would be the next thing down. Instead of out of 3 rocks, we're going to say out of 5 scrap wood. Okay. And in order to get that number looking right, all we got to do is go to where it's binded at. Because this one had a binding here, and all it is binded to the number of rocks. So all we got to do is bind this one to the number of scrap wood. So right here where it says text, we'll bind it, create binding, and you can really go to the other one that you made right here, copy everything here, copy and paste. So basically all I did was cast to the third person character, get not rocks but scrap wood, then return to a format text. Instead of rocks, I'm going to type in the curly brackets scrap wood. Bro, I swear sometimes my brain be slow all the way down. Plug that in right there. And now we can display how much scrap wood we have on our crafting menu. So let's pick up a piece of scrap wood. Let's drop one in our level and see if all of this is working. If it is, I'm going to end it here, because in the next one we'll be ready to build the axe. So let's look for our pickups, scrap wood. Oh, it's mighty large, isn't it? So 20 was like kind of big, wasn't it? Let's go to our blueprints. 10. Okay. And let's test this out. Let's pick up a couple of them. Scrap wood. E. E. Still too big for me, but let's press the crafting menu. Oh, one moment here. On our crafting menu, we forgot to do something. So go back to your crafting menu. HUD, crafting menu. Let's look at that binding there. Oh, because it says rocks out of 5 scrap woods. My bad, y'all. 5. I didn't finish it. Scrap wood. Okay, my bad, dude. My bad. Now let's press play. Pick up our big old scrap woods here. Scrap wood. Pick it up by pressing E, of course. E. Now press the crafting menu. And we got 2 out of 5, so it's working. And there we go. Now we're on our way to build our axe. Now for me, like I said, I'm gonna make that scrap wood a little bit smaller because I am not feeling the size of that. Yep, that's better. There we go. And so now all we gotta do before I end the episode is duplicate that spawner or that scatter thing that we made at the beginning. So for me, that's in my pickups. And I made a scatter to duplicate it. And now on your second one, so for me, that would be this one. Instead of rocks, scatter the scrap wood. Boop. There we go. And also make sure your scrap wood has collision, because if it doesn't have proper collision, it will fall through the map. So for me, nanite is on, and I will just apply that collision. Save. Okay, and that's where I want to end the episode, y'all. Now you can scatter your wood and scatter your rocks throughout the level in different variations, so you can have all kinds of pickups to pick up. And what we need to do next time is we're going to add our pickups to together, the rocks and the sticks, to be able to build an axe. And then that axe, we're going to do what we need to do with it. So thanks for joining me in this one. Hope you learned something. I will holla at y'all in the next one. Peace.
Run to the money, on the feet don't fail. The DA and the judge, on the do they best to jail. I done heard it all.